Ladies and gentlemen.
There was one story that I talked about that after I'd posted that video, several other people told me about some other information that was so juicy. I thought, my goodness, I have to revisit this topic. So in the episode that Megan has with Jamie Kern-Lima, Jamie is asking her all about what is it like to have so many girls look up to you. Which girls? I'm not sure. But supposedly, Jamie found a whole forum full of 11 and 12-year-olds who are just dying to be like Megan. And Megan's like, I always try to keep in touch with that little girl me. I always check in with little girl me. And I remember what it was to just be enamored with celebrity. And she goes on to tell this tale where way back in the day when she worked at a little yogurt shop called Humphrey Yogurt, isn't that a great name? When I was 13, I worked there and I was taking the trash out one day, and there standing right before me was Yasmine Bleeth. And you have to remember, this was the height of, Baywatch, and she was just everything to me. And so I went up to her and I gathered all my courage and I told her I really loved her in this commercial. And, she was so kind to me. She asked me my name and she introduced herself, so I didn't know who she was. And it was just this really great moment that taught me how to treat people when they approach me. Okay, Megan, whatever you want to say. And so she tells this whole story. And in my video, I had called BS on the whole thing because I just didn't feel, first of all, that Yasmine Bleeth would be hanging out in the back alley of a Humphrey Yogurt. That seemed a bit of a stretch. I didn't believe that Megan at 13 years old was, had the side hustle over at the yogurt shop. I mean, what? That story just never rang true to me. I feel like she had seen the name Humphrey Yogurt and thought it was a fun play on words because, she's a great one for the play on words. She loves that. And I just think that it stuck in her mind. And so later on, as she began to get more famous and, she was doing interviews, she just decided to add to her, she just decided to make up this story about how back when she was a kid, she used to have a job there just to sort of give her life more color. Because it's not that interesting that her dad, was the lighting guy on a soap and that she had a pretty privileged life, Not super interesting. But if she's, over there slinging yogurt over at Humphrey Yogurt, that's a tad more relatable, Anyway, so I thought the story was whack. I didn't believe a word of it. And come to find out, my instincts were correct because way back in the day, before she'd ever met Harry, she was doing an interview and they asked her what was the first fan letter she'd ever written. And she says it was to Yasmine Bleeth. And then she goes on to tell quite a different tale of the first time she ran into Yasmine Bleeth. Now, she still claims that the incident happened at Humphrey Yogurt, but this time she sees Yasmine Bleeth come into the establishment. She runs up to her, basically word vomits all over her about, oh my gosh, I love you so much, and I saw you in the commercial. And Megan's laughing the whole time through this whole interview. This touching of her face as she tells you this relatable tale seems to be one of her things. One of her please like me, please think I'm relatable and cute. So then it's so crazy. I went up to her and she just kind of looked at me like I was crazy, and then I backed up into the yogurt shop, and it was just so awkward moment. It makes me cringe just to think about it.
And then I saw her. I used to work at a frozen yogurt store in LA. It was my first job. It was called Humphrey Yogurt. And I saw her in the parking lot, and what do I say to her? The most ridiculous thing you could say. Oh my God, I love you so much. I loved you in that soft and dry commercial. You're very blankly like, okay, thank you. And I walked very meekly back into Humphrey Yogurt.
Oh, so you mean Yasmine didn't have this really nice moment where she looked you in the eye and said, what's your name? And you told her, and then she had the decency to introduce herself, not being drunk on her own fame? Completely divergent stories. Megan says she has no idea what the press is saying about her. She's told us this multiple times now. And I'm inclined at this point to almost be like, do you have your head in the sand? Because how could you tell us such glaring opposites constantly and think that the people aren't up on your game? We get that you are not a truth teller and that you're constantly contradicting yourself. Are you not aware? Do you not care that that's what's happening? That's the people's perception of you is of one of a liar? The entire interview was ridiculous. It was a train wreck is what it is. But to Megan's credit, she found somebody who was more off-putting than herself for her world premiere podcast episode of being on somebody else's podcast. Because Jamie Kern-Lima was out of control hard to watch. She had no ability to respond to Megan in a human way. She was robotic. She had this weird look on her face. She just looked ridiculous. And she never changed her expression, and she never entered the conversation like a normal human being would. She seemed like she couldn't. There seemed like there was like she couldn't seem to come up with the right words, so she just didn't say anything. Even her expressions didn't mirror, the emotion coming from Megan in any significant way. At one point when they both pretended to cry, she also pretended to wipe tears from her eyes, as Megan wiped tears from her bone-dry eyes. Both of them play acted like they were touched by talking about their kids, but that was like the most emotion we ever got out of baby-voiced Jamie Kern-Lima. And I said in my review that I thought that podcast was funded, and then everybody was like, no, actually, she was on QVC for years and, had IT Cosmetics, and, she's like a billionaire because she sold her cosmetics company, and I still don't care. One, I knew that she had been on QVC and that she had cosmetic line. I didn't know how much she sold it for. But somebody is keeping that entity alive, this podcast. She's got like 70-something thousand subscribers on YouTube. And the fact that she managed to get that many subscribers on such poor content, because she cannot interview people. Those are bot subscriptions. She's got people in the industry that are trying to help her. She's made friends and she's made deals. Funding doesn't always mean I've been financially funded, but I'm being funded by people's time and energy into me. And the amount of subscribers and the level of production in her studio and somebody's obviously, editing this. I don't think it's her editing this. She obviously had crew there because when Megan showed up, she's like, hey, crew. I mean, she's got like a whole film, like all these people are working for her. I'm not saying that financially she couldn't pay for that, but it doesn't matter how much money you have. If the product is junk, it's going to be junk and you're not going to get anybody watching. I don't understand how she has 70,000 something subscribers on such a junk show unless somebody is helping her in some realm to pad the numbers. But she is invited to talk at all these places. Like there's this weirdness where people in Hollywood are willing to put up with her. And I'm like, is she giving massive money to charity? Is she using these billions to some purpose? Do people want a trip on her personal jet? Like, why are people feeding into this girl? Because as far as what she wants to bring you, which is, to be this uplifting, spiritual, enlightened sort of guru / the girl you can just talk to. I mean, all of this that she's trying to put forth, it's not coming across. She's not saying anything spiritually wise. She's not uplifting me, but, helping me understand my worthy self. She's written a whole book on the subject. And I don't understand how in the world we're supposed to believe that she's an authority on any of this. I know she made makeup for people who have, redness and scars and stuff. Is that supposed to mean that she understands sometimes you feel bad about yourself and so now she's an authority on worthiness because she made some makeup to cover it? I mean, I don't know. I'm struggling to understand how she has a platform whatsoever.